Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live, and I'm Cyril Stober. Our country has been grappling with high levels of violence for the past decade, but current patterns seem different in at least three ways. One is the increase in random violence. This looks to be the case in the country's southeast, where what started as a legitimate agitation for self-determination by the indigenous peoples of Biafra, IPOB, seems to have unraveled into free-for-all violence. And then the insurgency in the northeast, putting the powerhouse of the African continent under international security scrutiny, with damage to both lives and property across 6 states of the northeast region, coordinated operations in perpetuating wanton destruction. But this momentum seems to have significantly dropped. Lastly, is the viral form of crimes ravaging the country and threatening a greater number of the population. The kidnapping syndrome or abduction, a criminal enterprise that has now penetrated even public schools, worship centers, commuter systems, and public spaces with ransom and other conditions to fulfill in exchange for freedom of the victims. Tonight, NTA Tuesday Live will focus on violent crimes and the way forward. But before we go into the conversation, let's get to see this report put together by correspondent Mary Repelong.
Is a social problem in all human societies, and Nigeria, the largest and most influential nation, suffers from this negative trend. This menace caused by poverty, unemployment, poor parenting, proliferation of light arms, according to experts, are responsible for the violent crime being perpetrated across the country. These violent crimes such as assaults, robbery, kidnapping, domestic violence, among others, cause physical harm to victims or even loss of lives in some cases. Plateau State has had its fair share of these violent crimes in different forms, as government, security agencies, and non-governmental organizations have made concerted efforts to address them.
Security agents, in synergy with other sister agencies, they've actually been in the field, working tirelessly 24 hours round the clock to see that safety of lives and properties are actually achieved on the plateau. The state government also has been doing very wonderfully in saying that they comb the stream and nip up all the bugs that are actually causing insecurity in the state.
If there is armed proliferation, there should be the mopping up of these arms. We need to locate where are the entry routes of these arms. Are these arms produced here in Nigeria? How do we really identify arms smugglers or arms producers to see? We need to see perpetrators of criminality are actually arrested and prosecuted.
Experts are advocating good governance and prudent management of the nation's resources with a clear vision to curb the menace of violent crimes.
Idleness is rewarded. Hard work is ignored. There are a lot of people who work hard in Nigeria and get peanuts for it.
Look at stereotype profiling, ethnic profiling, religious profiling, where you are already judged, just by your tribe and by your religion. Now you have so many displaced people, and that on its own encourages criminality, because there's a what's it called, appetite for revenge. There's appetite for retaliation, and then there's appetite for reprisal. So the government needs to look at those areas.
They also advocate the need for government to ensure adequate funding of security, as they also urge them to report activities of criminal elements in their communities for quick action. In Jos, Mary Repelong Domtur.
Well, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's start off by introducing our guest tonight. Let's welcome to this program Honorable Aliyu Gebi, Special Advisor to the Chief of Defense Staff on non-kinetic strategies to winning peace, as well as coordinator of the Suluhu Peace Process in the Northeast and member of the CDS advisory team. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Right. We're joined tonight also by Professor Oke Ikechukwu, philosopher and professor of strategic management and human capital development. He's executive director, Development Specs Academy, Abuja. Thanks for being with us, Prof.
Thank you.
Let me also welcome Dr. Ahmed Jibrin Suleiman. He's associate professor, head Islamic Law Department. He's also the deputy dean, Faculty of Law, Yusuf Maitama Sule University, Kano. Thanks for being here tonight. And also joining us tonight is Mr. Mike Ejiofor, a retired DSS director, security consultant, president, Alumni Association, Alumni Association, National Institute for Security Studies. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, as you know, the program at some point in time goes interactive. When it is that time, we'll acquaint you, we'll remind you of the process and the procedure. But for now, let's begin to look at the issues at stake as we examine violent crimes in Nigeria and the way forward. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us tonight. It's a big question which many Nigerians are asking, and that's how did we get to this stage? Banditry, kidnapping, terrorism, all kinds of things. How did Nigeria get to this stage?
Thank you very much, sir. And as always, it's an honor to be in your presence, and I still remain a fan. It's a situation that has been 60 years in the making. It's a situation, again, that is steeped in traditional grievances, injustices, social injustice, disequitable distribution of opportunities and resources, an elite that lacks empathy, and irresponsible political antecedents of our political actors. So it's a combination and culmination of so many factors, so much so that one feeds into the other. So we did not just wake up overnight to find ourselves here. Our descent into this seemingly intractable chaos has been steady. But for the actions of very good men, patriots and services sworn into the service and protection of Nigeria, perhaps the descent would have been further accelerated. And perhaps you and I would not be able to sit in this studio and have this conversation. So unless and until we're able to find some sort of elite consensus that enough is enough, and draw the line and not in sand to ensure that what happened before never happens again, until we get to the point where we define our never again moment, it will continue happening, sadly.
I mean, this has steadily been going on from about the time of independence?
No, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll look at that in greater detail. But, Prof, what are your impressions? How did this all start? What's taking us to this level?
I think the first point to make is that it's not always been like this. There was a time when patriotism was taken for granted, when belief in Nigeria was part of popular consciousness. We were all once small children in school. And I believe that even you, Cyril, if you think back, you remember there was something to celebrate when you spoke of Nigerian independence or Children's Day. There was also a time when somebody from Kano won elections in Enugu to be the mayor. Somebody from the southeast won an election in Lagos, because the man could win that election because people saw him as one of them. He wasn't profiled according to his religion or his ethnic group. So, whereas it's good to talk about how we got here, we must also admit that we were not always here. But progressively, values began to deteriorate. The main point I would like to put on the table before I go to other things is that for as long as the citizenry do not see it as their duty to make information available to security agencies, for so long will insecurity expand. The military and the security agencies, they are us. They are people's brothers and sisters. So when you say I'm in DSS or I'm in the army or in the Navy, you don't become a magician or a witch or a wizard. You are somebody who needs what we always had, which was community policing as public community consciousness. We saw a stranger in the market today. You talk to the market leader, you talk to the women leader, you go to the traditional ruler. Why is that not happening? Is it caused by the security agencies? So the point to focus on also is the demobilization, the assumption of the general public that you have these entities called security agencies and the military whose business it is to secure the rest of us. We take away our responsibility to be conscious and assist them. So building that up into the substantive question you raised, we're here where we are today for possibly 5 reasons. Progressive loss of faith in the Nigerian state due to bad leadership, progressive decline in the quality of education and mentorship being mediated at all levels, then the distortion of the role of the military in national development, and then in returning to politics, the emergence of a new political elite that did not connect office and does not connect office with service delivery. To the extent I'm elected, I have a position, and so if I'm going to see my mother, I go in 10 vehicles, doing 160 on a village road, killing people's goats. And the children are looking, I want to be like that man. So unconscious mentoring and damaging of another generation. And now you come to the moment, to the present, where if you look at all the indices that should reassure the people, most of them are not there. The elite habits, those in leadership, what's their expenditure profile? What are the kind of allowances and privileges they give themselves? What are their constituencies looking like? So you find that by the conduct of those who are supposed to lead, the people are losing more and more faith, and they're even beginning to suspect that the state is a criminal enterprise. Final note on that. If you had left most villages, probably 90% of the villages in Nigeria, if you had left that place in 1970, that's how many years now? 40 plus? And you came back today, most of the village footpaths are intact. The only difference is that you can find some houses built by people who have held public office. What does that lead you to? The progressive expenditure of those who claim to lead, lawmaking, and no evidence of impact. Why, for instance, will the population of the poor, the unemployed, and the unemployable be increasing, whereas there's also an increase in government expenditure? Put all of that together, what you have is an environment that breeds criminality. Because poverty, unemployment, bad role models make everybody a potential criminal.
Okay. Profound. We'll get to some of those issues in more detail. But Dr. Ahmed Jibrin Suleiman.
You know, I've been looking at it this week, and my view is shaped by the writings of Professor Chinua Achebe in his book, The Trouble with Nigeria. I think it should be page 6 or so. He says there is nothing wrong with Nigerian river or climate. The problem with Nigeria is squarely failure of leadership. Now, this failure of leadership, I will share 4 or 5 perspectives with you now, and you will see it. Let me take the perspective of security. Security, you need an institution that lives up to its responsibility. When the British came, they left a police system for us, British police system, which was squarely made through petty crimes and all that. Nigeria saw that gap when Sadona was killed at home. Nigeria saw that gap when Murtala Muhammad was killed. And because of that, the military government then passed a decree that set up what now becomes SS. Now SS have grown as an institution to deal with challenges of the time. But Nigerian leaders have failed to raise up other institutions to fill gap. And that is why the problem you have now with insecurity is that we don't have enough security system to deal with 4 cadres of security challenges of violence. Violence is normally, the lower threshold of violence is dealt with criminal system. Our criminal system is not developed enough to deal with petty crimes, robbery, and all that. Now, if you move slightly beyond that threshold, you have what is called SOV or OSV, other situations of violence. These violence are a bit beyond, bigger than, they are larger than petty crime, but they are not up to an armed conflict. Now, you need a strong agency to deal with this level of violence, but because this is not meant for ordinary policing or constable. Now, have we developed our system to deal with this? Now, if you go slightly higher than other situations of violence, you have what is called internal armed conflict or non-international armed conflict. We have not developed our systems to do that. And then higher, you have what is called international armed conflict. We are now bringing Nigerian military, which is meant for international armed conflict, to come and support in these lower thresholds of violence. And these violence are not meant to be dealt with by just kinetics. You have a lot of dynamics to deal with those challenges. Thank God the military is now living up to that standard, is trying very hard enough to deal with that. But the military, by nature of their training, by nature of their doctrine, they are not meant for those challenges. So you are going to have some failures there. Oh, thank God, SS have lived up to the gap that led to the creation of SS in 1975 or 76 after the death of Murtala Muhammad. But dealing with these other internal challenges becomes a problem because ordinarily SS is meant to be in the background, not uniform. Now, you keep that aside. We were expecting civil defense when they came up and the law was reenacted, because even SS coming up to this, after 1975, the government of Babangida came up, amended the decree, made some adjustments. So we were expecting civil defense would be brought up to deal with these emerging trends. Some of us have, if you look at, some of us have been warning government about these moving challenges. If you look at about 20 years back, in the 1st June of, in the daily tours of 1st June 2004, I've written on these threats and challenges and the need to develop a system to deal with this. And the government failed to live up to this expectation. I presented over than about 10 papers on this. Government refused to listen. When the farmer herders attack was there, in Abuja, I was the secretary of a conference on this. We presented a paper where I personally brought up the issue of rapid response forces, which they failed to come up with. And the same challenge is now taking us to kidnapping challenge. Now, I have presented paper in National State University when they presented a conference on this. On these challenges, government failed to live up to those expectations. And these agencies you are seeing, they can try as much as they can. Let's say like SS, thank God SS have lived up to this expectation of the gap for which they were created. But have we created other systems to live up to that expectation? And beyond that, this is just institutional. And then we also have social factors. In every situation, creating a nation building, the task of nation building requires a lot of input from politicians, from leaders, because you are going to have social crisis. People, you are bringing them from what they are, the way they were living into today and take a new direction. You need to come up with comfort zone. But these leaders have failed to provide this comfort zone. And let me tell you, that is why whoever knows what is happening knows that among all the countries that have faced this challenge, Nigeria emerged very poor. India started with Nigeria. Of course, they broke up into 3 countries, Pakistan, India, and the whole of these 3 countries are now more advanced than Nigeria. Take, for instance, Sudan. Sudan couldn't deal with their crisis. They broke into South Sudan and Northern Sudan. All of them are living their life. But Nigeria, we failed to break up and we failed to live up to that expectation. Nigerians are suffering. As I'm telling you, Nigerians are in hunger. And the kind of hunger we are facing now, we don't have a system that can keep these people innocent. Because in survival is the first instinct. And Nigerians are now being pushed to a situation where out there in the village, yesterday I had a case in Katsina State Sharia Court of Appeal, on my way through Daura, if you saw what I saw at the villages, if you see, I stopped at a village after Kasawari. If you see what people are doing now, Nigerians are living to a situation where a lot of families cannot afford 1 meal in a day. How can you keep such a country together? Now keep that survival aside. Now, another issue is that in every country you have what is called centripetal and centrifugal forces. These centripetal forces are not just within. You also have countries that have an interest in the breakup of Nigeria. We can't close up our eyes to those realities. And we have countries and other organizations that also have interest in the peace and stability of Nigeria. Now, what have we done to checkmate those tendencies? Our system has failed to do that. And therefore, you are going to have a lot of problems in Nigeria. From the way I'm seeing, I'm not seeing the future sounds worse than what we are even facing today.
All right. We'll also examine those issues you've raised. But from Mr. Mike Ejiofor, your perspective on these violent crimes today.
Other contributors have made their submissions. What we are seeing is failure of leadership. Not only failure of leadership, we have lost all our values. Now, I'll give you an example. Before the British came, we were administering ourselves through traditional institutions. What are the roles assigned to traditional institutions as we speak? Only last week, 2 traditional rulers were killed in Ekiti. What are the rules assigned to our traditional rulers who have been in charge of our communities? What do they have? We're talking of leadership. The interference of government in appointing or nominating or confirming the rulers of such communities is diminished. You see, it's a situation where government will now, in fact, in some cases, you have disputes, and government will take side because of political leanings to recognize somebody who is not popular in their community. It brings problem because the people don't have confidence in the person who has been appointed and recognized by government. So in such communities, what do you expect? Loss of confidence from the community. So if the traditional rulers at that level don't control the confidence of their people, what do you expect? They don't respect such leaders. So interference of government and part of traditional, we need to assign roles to our traditional and remove the interference of government in appointment and nomination of such traditional rulers. They will talk of loss of values. Our political elites, what example are they setting? Somebody who has no ostensible means of livelihood will go into politics. In Nigeria, some people even crack joke about it, that the quickest way to make money now is either religion or politics. You either go and establish a mosque or a church, you make money, or you go into politics. And when they go into politics, they display their wealth flagrantly to the annoyance of the people. So what other means do they have than to join criminality, to also be in the same level with our politicians? So political leadership, corruption, on the flagrant display of wealth to the annoyance of the people. So these are the issues. As we progress, I think we'll be able to go further to see how do we check this. because it's becoming a very big national problem.
All right. Aside of the discussions we have in the studio, we also have a number of reports which speak to the issues at stake. We'll take this first one from Taraba.
Such as armed robberies, kidnapping and communal clashes have become all too common in Taraba State. The impact of these crimes on the people and the state's development cannot be understated.
The issue of the boundary is a very serious issue. It retards development, it stops agriculture, it reduces movements of people, it restricts so many things, and not even jeopardizing the economy of the state. A lot of people are around in hunger, they cannot even harvest. Because of this issue of boundary, people are fearing. They fear going into bush, they fear traveling, they fear going to local markets to bring materials to the state capital for sale. The whole thing is now jeopardizing the entire economy of the state.
We can only talk to each other as individuals, as Taraba people. Our people are very, very understanding. If you involve them in whatever you are doing in government, you get the results. Let the government take the lead, not only in supporting the security agencies, but in bringing understanding.
The situation has prompted the state government, security agencies and community leaders to take proactive measures to address these threats, including the involvement of hunters and vigilantes. One of the key strategies being implemented is the improvement of security infrastructure and personnel development across the state.
What we are saying is that the people, the leaders, the traditional rulers must identify those who are not giving their community good names. Send them to the police and we'll do our job. Of course, the intelligence is there, so they don't need to hide them. Once we get intelligence about a criminal, they should go to tell us, assist us in apprehending that criminal.
We, as traditional rulers, we always rally around them, pray for them to see that when we, the people in our community, we live peacefully.
In addition to this effort, the state government has been engaging with community leaders and residents to foster better cooperation between security agencies and the public. This collaboration aims to create a safer environment by encouraging the reporting of suspicious activities and enabling prompt response to emergencies.
Together, we can address regional challenges and maximize developmental opportunities, promoting a sense of shared responsibility and collective progress.
The engagement between the government, security agencies and the people is crucial in combating violent crimes to create a secure and harmonious environment in Taraba State and the nation at large. In Jalingo, Adwa Demualso.
All right, from Taraba, we move over to Imo, where this next report comes from.
Crimes like murder, armed robbery, kidnapping, ritual killing, terrorism and banditry are some of the most crimes that are being witnessed in most parts of the country. Lately, kidnapping for ransom has taken the center stage, resulting to bloodshed and economic setback, as kidnappers most times kill their victims even after collection of ransom. Violent crimes are no doubt taking very heavy tolls on the socio-economic lives of the people, as fear of the unknown now becloud the mind of the people. Unemployment, get-rich-quick syndrome among the youths, and the hustle for survival, among other causes, have been attributed to the rise in criminality, and this, respondents say, requires the attention of government, the society, parents, and the religious institutions to cope.
Some parents, you can see them going to sort teachers for their children that are still in primary schools, even sometimes nursery schools, in order to pass their children in exam.
The parents need to go back to the drawing board. We have lost it. Lost it in the sense that, you see, one thing is for you to give birth, another thing is for you to raise a child.
As part of effort towards checking the trend, the Imo State government has been supporting security agencies with logistics to aid the fight against criminality. On their part, security agencies have been holding confidence-building campaigns, sensitization of youths, as well as soliciting collaborative efforts from the public in the fight against crime.
We have been apprehending criminal suspects. Some of them have been arraigned in courts and remanded in Correctional Service Custodial Center while others are still undergoing intense investigation.
Oil theft in Imo State. We arrest and charge these people to court. When we charge these people to court, these products will be forfeited, both the truck that is involved, the owner will be charged to court and will be remanded, and this product will be forfeited to government.
The traditional rulers, president generals, youth leaders, they need to talk to their subjects on the need for them to collaborate with the police, stamp out violent crime for the state.
Renew your heart, renew yourself. You must tell yourself the truth that regardless of the pressure, that crime does not pay anybody.
All hands must be on deck if the desired result must be achieved in the fight against crimes. In Owerri, Larita Rinzi-Ogwim.
Right, back here in the studio, we still have our guests here, and one thing that's been spoken about here by many of the respondents has to do with people not leaving the matter of security entirely in the hands of what we've come to know as security agencies now. But there is always this matter of trust. Trust within communities, trust, people having implicit trust and confidence in their leaders. And these have been said to be part of the problem when this trust has broken down. People no longer care about what goes on, and we've all become very individualistic, and people don't trust their leaders. So where do we begin to work on this?
It's a very loaded question, but I must say, sitting here in this seat, I was squirming with some of the opinions that were voiced by people of superior intellect to mine. We have this tendency to be a very subjective elite. Whatever the elite would say centers and ends up being about the individual. I presented my paper, my idea, my advice, forgetting the fact that no one has monopoly over any solutions to any problems whatsoever. Talking about the threat dimensions of Nigeria, I agree with the learned senior colleague that asserted the differentials in terms of the trajectories of crimes and the agencies that should handle those types of crimes. I pose a question. The monies that I paid in ransom, where are the monies spent? Whose job is it to trace and follow that money? That's number one. Number two, again, alluding to some of the things that he said, what we are facing is a hybrid threat. Yes, he is right. The third ring of the three rings is petty crime. The first one is insurgency, which must be dealt with by the military. When degraded, it becomes organized crime, which should be dealt by, not by the military, but by a specialist component like the DSS or the FBI, since we like to compare with the United States of America. When they further dismantle and degrade, it becomes the third cycle, which is petty, normal crime to be dealt with by the police. But what we have, because we don't have the follow-through, and you have the DSS jumping, trying to fill gaps, the military degrades the insurgency, which has been done successfully time and time again in the Northeast. It becomes organized crime. The DSS does what it can to dismantle the physical components of the organized criminal franchise, but there is no follow-through to take it down to the first layer, the last layer, which is petty crime. So it retools, re-up in organized crime as kidnapping, cattle rustling, etc., and goes back to a full-blown insurgency yet again for the military to handle. So we need to put these things in perspective. I'm glad you brought about Taraba. When I opened my statement, I talked about traditional grievances and our dishonesty. All of us, me inclusive. In 2017, September, there was a genocide on the Mambila. 2,217 Nigerians were slaughtered. The names are there. By the police documents, there were 702. We were there, on-site inspectors. We went round, we flew with helicopters, we compiled, we sat with everybody, we compiled. We submitted the report with clear suggestions on what needed to have been done. But again, the Fulanis actually told us that we expect nothing to be done. It happened in 2002, it happened in so and so and so. Nothing will come out of it until the day we decide to say we'll take vengeance. Then it happens. Names were mentioned. Names were mentioned clearly. Depositions were taken. Not one person was apprehended, arraigned in court, detained in any DPO, in any police station. And then we think we'll keep going on and nothing will happen. Number two, we have a very dishonest elite. Everyone is self-centered. We blame the politicians. Everyone aspires. It's the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You aspire to acquire so that you can make your life easier. From a little apartment to a big house, from 1 car to 2 cars to 3 cars, so your children going to better schools. It is a normal aspiration of man. But to assume it's only the politicians that want to show that we have arrived, we have money, it's not been truthful. Men of uniform take off their uniforms to go back and take traditional titles so that they can maintain that symbol of authority and insignia of doing well. Let's be honest with ourselves. They're saying that the traditional title holders should have some responsibility. I was a member of the National Assembly. What should we give them? Was it not a tyrannical, traditional ruling elite that caused some of these problems? If they were doing what they were supposed to do, certain things would not have happened. I'll take Kano, Northern Nigeria, for example, and the birth of Nefu. What gave birth to Nefu? As Muslims, let's go back to Uthman bin Fodio. What gave rise to the so-called jihad of Uthman bin Fodio against the tyrannical rulers of Gobir? It is always the same story, Cyril. It is the excesses of an elite devoid of empathy. And we have an implosion, the political, the religious, the social, the whatever. They have imploded into one super big family, palace to palace weddings only. President's son, governor's daughter. Senator's son, member's daughter. They are all related, so it is them versus the rest. So unless and until we address this issue, where there is an equitable distribution of opportunity, justice, we'll keep talking. Maybe if they had taken my own suggestions, I will be happy and say I'm the one who wrote this book and they approved this and so on and so. But we have a very dishonest elite. And we like to, again, with due respect to my most senior, most erudite scholars, I'm not a scholar, I'm a failed politician. We like to think always the human animal is nostalgic, utopian. The past is always better than the present. It's not necessarily so. I'm glad somebody talked about responsible parenting. If we raise our children the right way, perhaps the crucible, the repository where so-called corrupt leaders in the future will be taken from will be that much more smaller. There needs to be dignity in doing the right thing before government will recognize it. After all, government functionaries come from the same Nigerian societies. We live in the totally, the time you gave me in the beginning was a little bit short, sir, so I would like to take a little bit. We are totally segregated and divided. Muslims here, Christians here, so we are talking about values. Whose values? Talking about history. Whose history? What is taboo here is sacred here. What is sacred here is taboo there. But because we are dishonest, we are unable to create a consensus. The Southwest have consensus. Lagos is Lagos, not by accident. If you make me Lagos State Governor today, I will succeed. Why? Because there is elite consensus that Lagos must work. And if we can do that, if the Yorubas can do that for Lagos, then we can do it for Nigeria. Our quest is for national identity, and up till now, we have not been able to get that. And anybody that gets any level of comfort, Mr. Stoba, forgets about the collective, becomes individualistic. These are our soldiers dying on our behalf, our DSS personnel, our police personnel, and they're not doing too badly. We should recognize. If we should talk about solutions, we should talk about constitutional amendment, what needs to be done, empowering the civil defense to make sure that the civil defense fills that gap. We are not even talking about securing our schools. Since Jibok, that should have been our never again moment. But after that, there have been so many, too many to count. What is NFIU doing? If hundreds of billions are being paid in ransom, where is the money? Who is striking the money? The money is not being spent in the bush. While the soldiers are doing their best, the DSS, the police, and everyone, and they must be commended. But where is the money? Who should follow the money? Are the banks warehousing the money? Who is keeping the money? Find the money, find the solution, solve the problem. But we have to become honest as elites. I'm glad there's a philosopher here who can quote most of the books that I can never dream of quoting. But the basis of everything that we do in Nigeria as people who claim to be very religious, yes, the most religious people in the world, but exceptionally ungodly. You won't even do your own job unless there is incentive to do that. Why? And there is no consequence for bad behavior. We rather endorse it. Yes, of course. Politics is the quickest way. And we caused it. 1999, when the political dispensation came back, those traditional politicians, and there is a dichotomy between a politician and an aspirant. President Muhammadu Buhari was an aspirant. He was not a politician. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a politician who has now decided to become an aspirant. Atiku Abubakar should have become a politician and not an aspirant. Perhaps he would have consolidated power. 1999, power returned to civilians. The traditional politicians did not believe it was here to last. So what happened? Charlatans came in. Fortune favors the bold. Sir. They seized the bull by the proverbial horn. They got power. Now they had power. They used the power to amass money. And they occupied that entire space and pushed out legitimate politicians. And that is the tragedy of Nigeria today.
So in all this scenario that you've painted, Prof, I'm coming back to you now. How do you begin to build a trust in a system that can work, that can bring people back to their values? We also touched on going back to losing our values, and one of the respondents there talked about parenting. But the parents are also living in the same society, and we even had cases of where people have faked their own kidnap, and their children are seeing such things. And some of those who are engaged in these crimes have children and other relations, and they have parents. And where do we begin to draw the line and chastise bad behavior and stop glorifying?
Well, beginning from the comments of the last speaker, part of our current history is the reality of anger that has matured for decades. Nurtured, sustained, reinforced, and in some cases ignored by those who should have said, we are aware. And so anger turned to fury, and fury turned to implacable resolve to remain a mischief maker. To that extent, you have today, I am guessing, fifth columnists, both in government and out of government, and some officially challenged, some not officially challenged. I think in the last 24 hours we heard of some people protesting that a certain senator is whining and dining with bandits. And of course, they've also reacted and said, oh, it is some people trying to turn the masses against northern senators. I beg your pardon. You see, there are issues to take on the table. And this is purely at the level of speculation, since he has said I'm a philosopher. If you're going to be chair of the Senate Committee on National Security and Intelligence, are you aware, for instance, that part of your clearance will go as far as even the U.S. commenting on your eligibility? So these are some of the issues. But to take the thing broad spectrum, parenting is an issue. You move from parenting, you see, the custodians of value in every society are the family, the schools, the teachers, the traditional rulers, the traditions of the land, the religious leaders, and then those who emerge at the level of partisan politics. When the custodians of value are demolished, you can only have progressive confusion. Now, let's look at the school system, which is the factory that produces human capital, right? At the nursery level, most of the teachers there are mostly secondary school dropouts and house helps, so they really have nothing to teach. At the primary level, you know how many state governments have set out tests for the teachers with a curriculum far below that of the children they are teaching, and more than 50–60% failed. Now you move to this secondary level, is not any better. At the university level, who are those teaching in the university? Normally, a university retains the best graduating students at the academic feedstock. For over 30 years, the better paying sectors of the economy have been drawing out the best students. To that extent, and in many cases, majority of the cases have fourth-rate scholars bringing out fifth-rate people with certificates who have no capacity whatsoever. And not only that, The vocational element of human capital development is non-existent. There are no dying wells in Kano anymore. The skills, plumbing, all of that doesn't exist. In addition, and this is an overlooked point, to increase agriculture, we've been damming our rivers, isn't it, to get more water. Now, when you build a dam, what happens is that it keeps water. But less water goes down here. The local economies disappear. The young men are not looking to steal, but they have to survive. So subtle opportunistic criminality develops, and it's all over. So you now find that if you're traveling, I'm sure you're surprised about the connection. Travel from here to Ayamba, wherever. The rivers that used to be about 200 meters are now 20 meters at the peak of the rainy season. One after the other. Look at Lokoja area. And that's why you find that whenever flood comes into Lokoja, it takes the roofs of some houses. Because for over 10, 15 years, they didn't know that was part of the riverbed. But migrating to the issue of crime, I mentioned fifth columnist, that's a fact. Some people are working in that regard. Secondly, with regard to his question about where is the money, yes. And if whatever IU they call themselves, we insult ourselves when we pretend we can't do certain things. Look, 21 or 22, I taught cybersecurity in the NTA. There is nothing as elementary as following the money in this age of technology. You can't collect 100 million and cut it up and use it to eat suya. It's not going to work. And then if you also collect it and you're going to buy dollars, we should be able to know those who sell dollars to that volume. They must give us their record. By the time you find it difficult to get away with selling off that amount of dollars, you become careful. So all the what you call it checks that ought to deliver on this are non-existent, not deployed, not applied, and criminality multiplies. Now you move it further to the role of the security agencies. The security agencies, I think we live in a society that's absolutely unfair to DSS, to the military, to NSDC, etc. When I say unfair, whether you admit it or not, they are spread too thin. How many are there? They're also underfunded, let's not deceive ourselves. The equipment most of the time is slightly out of date, not as sophisticated as it ought to be, and then you come to look at it. Every day there's an increase in crime. How many new policemen did you recruit yesterday? Such that if there's kidnapping in Buhari, there's one in Nyanya, there's one in Gwagwalada, all of them within Abuja, 6 instances. Policemen have no capacity for witchcraft. I said that earlier. DSS is not part of, what do you call it, the days of the Arabian Nights who could do things in the desert. These are human beings. These are people's fathers, mothers, and children. These are people who are overstretched. You have a report of 9 cases in one day. Total number of personnel, 31. Some of them are administrative, so they must not leave that place. You have 9 to spare. Each of the 9 has 7 outstanding cases he or she is dealing with. We are begging for trouble. This is Abuja federal capital. And you see, it's also going to force us to become more realistic in our understanding of national security. Now, what's the distance between the DSS office and the president's house, where he sleeps? 750 meters. The difference between DSS, presidency, and National Assembly, between National Assembly, the presidency, and the Supreme Court, between that and the police headquarters, between that and the central bank, between that and the entire gamut of Nigeria Secretariat, between that and the entire defense headquarters, the one in Area 1, right? Total radius, 2 kilometers. 2 cluster bombs. It will not take 15 minutes. So we are playing with our lives. And the issue then is, we should be looking for more sophistication. And when cases are brought up, they should be taken seriously. If people could have the courage, I call it daredevilry, to go public and say, look, we believe that somebody in the National Assembly is not helping national security, either those people should be arrested for lying, or the National Assembly will quickly rise to the occasion and say, yes, we've gotten this, we are looking into it, and probably also even invite DSS and DIA to assist it in confirming whether this is true. So all of that put together, what are we looking at talking about solutions? There is absolute integrity deficit. But we can't sleep on integrity deficit. People must begin where they are. I believe that the element of leadership is critical. Very critical, but in a totally demoralized environment, nothing can happen in 24 hours. So it can only be instrumental actions that will keep reassuring the people. Assuming, for instance, in the instance I mentioned, you hear, oh, government is doing this. People will say, let's watch what they're going to do. We don't trust them. And they find out it's serious.
So how do you build that trust?
How do you build the trust? Begin where it matters. I mentioned, okay, a few days ago, there was this engagement by EFCC. When you speak of building trust, the assumption is that here are the people waiting for trust to be built because they are good, but the leaders are bad. Serial. If they make you a minister today, is it true that most of your friends, including your relations, will come to ask you for huge sums of money they know you don't earn? And the answer is yes. Is it true that if you don't give the money, they will call you an idiot? Very likely yes. Call you a failure? Very likely yes. So you find that you're dealing with a society that has itself become its own problem.
Okay,
I still maintain.
Right, but I don't want to...
Leadership signaling.
Okay. But then, from the analogy you just painted, I don't want to go there, but I don't want it to seem as if what we are saying is, well, our people get the leaders they deserve.
Until they say no, yes. Oh, yes. Until they say no, or until a leader emerges and says, sorry, these are the new paradigms. And we have the experience in that regard, and I'll just mention two very quickly so I don't take too much time. Peter Obi became governor. They were killing cow every day in the government house because people were coming to eat the governor's house. He said, please, people should stay with their wives in the now. This is not a restaurant. They will say they are coming to my house and the heaven knows where they will go. Save the money for Anambra State. He began to change things. Now, the president went for a prayer in Lagos, and nearly all the vehicles in Nigeria accompanied him. Nigeria has cried out. A few days later, what did he do? Or rather, the trip to Copa, I think. He made an announcement. Now, that kind of reaction makes people, okay, he noticed we were not happy and responded to it. Progressive gains. But as it is now, the integrity deficit is total. And it's not just on the leadership. The leadership also cannot trust the people to make the right demands. That's actually the greater crisis. That the person who now says, look, I'll do the right thing. I'm not going to steal any money. I'll use the money we were given to service our people. They say, please, let's share it. Let another person do the service. That's part of the problem.
Sometimes, all the time, let me not say sometimes, all the time, it's said that it's only a few who are ruining the system, meaning that the majority would do the right thing. But so how does it happen that a few can now have their way, and the majority, who are, in quotes, the good people, cannot influence? When people talk about peer pressure sometimes, I say, why is it that it's those who are doing the wrong things that are able to exert that pressure on those who do? Why isn't it the other way around?
Thank you. The problem is very clear. And I want you to examine Nigerian society. We are not knowledge-driven society. We are opportunity-driven society. So the fact that opportunities with few people, these few people will continue to influence who replace them. They will continue to take people, influence who rule institutions. And this is what leads to institutional failure. And when you have institutional failure, it now leads to national crisis. Let me cite an instance, building on how I started my presentation. Take, for instance, the case of Boko Haram. Boko Haram started as a petty crime challenge. It started from traffic laws. When that could not be curtailed, it moved into what is called OSV, riots, public disturbances. When it could not be curtailed, it moved into insurgency. When that insurgency could not be curtailed, it moved into non-international armed conflict. When it could not be curtailed, it moved into national international armed conflict. So you need to have strong institutions that deal with national challenges before they develop into substantive mayhem. All the challenges you've cited, if I had the time, I would trace how they develop into that. Let me just use Taraba, the case of Taraba you said. Taraba for about 20-something years started with fighting. The law was not working. And people could attack Ibi more than 3 times, I knew, because I was involved in some of those cases in court. I know what happened. Like you were citing, I know the facts and what happened in Mambila. Not reported to me, I know what happened. I was involved in the case in court. People attack Jubu. People attack Ukari. If you go to Ukari now, it's divided. How did it become divided? Thousands of people have died and nobody answered. There is no institution to hold them to books. What happened in Yelwashan Dam if you cross over? What happened in Takum, Kute and Chamba? Move into Central Taraba, go into Mandela, what happened? Those institutional failures, those failures were there 20 years, I'm talking of 90s. Some of these things started in 1992, 1990. And you have a lot of arms built up with these people. These arms were meant for tribal warfare. At the end of the day, because of poverty, people now know that they can use this arm to kidnap and get money. So this is institutional failure. I've started Taraba, Boko Haram, I've started Taraba. Now, this society, our leaders, most of them, I'm very sorry to say it, most of them have knowledge deficit. I've grown up in the university, I've been in the university for about 30 years now. So I know what happened when you are engaged, seriously engaged in thought. There is a lot of potentiality in human thought. Humanity is made up to face challenges. Human beings have lived for thousands of years overcoming challenges through mind. That is what separates human beings with other beings. And that is why we are based on survival. And that is why every nation you find making headway, that nation is knowledge driven. We are here now citing USA. In USA, even their Senate, politicians, they know the value of knowledge. When they are coming with policy, they do a lot of research. They call a lot of experts. I've been involved in most of laws that I've met in Nigeria. The Almajiri bill, some of us made a lot of contribution in the Almajiri bill because we know taking care of those Almajiri will solve our national problem. But what happened after all our struggle and all our contributions at the National Assembly? What happened to the leadership and management of that organization? So these are the things that allow the country to remain at standstill and not moving forward. America had challenges. Their challenges, they fought civil war. But as at then, the leadership was driven by knowledge. That is why all the definitions you have in democracy now emanated from Abraham Lincoln when he was leading America. During the time of John Kennedy, America had its social crisis and human rights crisis. But America was knowledge driven. He himself, if you read like 1,000 Days of John Kennedy, you see this is a person who had been prepared from kindergarten by his father, every day, reading dailies, reading books to solve national challenges. So in Nigeria, where do we have people who are so knowledge built to deal with our challenges? We don't. And they don't listen to knowledge. What they have is contempt for knowledge. And that is why academics and knowledgeable people are suffering in Nigeria today. Because it is a society that pays credence to opportunity, not credence to knowledge. And the God that created us from religious point of view, from real point of view, created human beings to excel with knowledge, created policies to excel with knowledge. And when you create opportunities, all you are going to have is opportunists who will now destroy the system.
At this point, we'll take a short break. When we return, the phone lines will be open and you can join in the conversation in the studio. So stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. This segment, of course, as I said, the lines will be open, the numbers will be on your screen. You can take advantage of those numbers and call in with your views or questions. And we do this every Tuesday when we say this to you. We say, look, we remind you that if you're calling in tonight and your call gets through to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we also encourage you to go straight to the point, keep it short and simple, so others can also get on the platform. And we say to you, not to worry too much about the greetings, just a simple hello. That's all it takes. So the numbers will be on your screen, and you can call in with your questions or comments. Guests here will be willing to address them as they come. But we'll start off with this report from Niger State.
With the menace of youth restiveness, whose activities was putting lives and property in danger, the youth of various communities within the metropolis persistently had scores to settle, thus leading to series of attacks that led to the death of some of them and that of innocent citizens. Consequently, the introduction of Operation Flush by the state government as an instrument to address the menace.
The partnership of the state government in providing Operation Flush vehicle to the police, whereby police got about 12 and other security got vehicles. So in total, about 20 Operation Flush vehicles were given to the security agencies. That has helped the police and other security agencies to checkmate the activities of this youth restiveness. You move within the town, you see the visibility of this vehicle. Our control room is able to deploy a particular sector that is close to that area. And this has been able to ensure rapid response to issues. And a lot of them have been arrested and prosecuted. So you agree with me that in a metropolis now, the crime rate has reduced drastically.
The step has continued to yield positive results as acknowledged and commended by residents of the state.
Walking on the street in some areas in Mina, it's become a problem. Even joining a commercial ride, it's become a problem. But as the stand today, it has reduced.
Before, there were fights everywhere. But when he came, he put security in order and they control.
You cannot come out using your phone publicly. You must get one or two persons that would like to take something from you. They will show you knife like this. You know if you do anything, but we are very grateful because all these things have reduced.
In Mina, Fatima Usman.
All right, that report from Niger State. We're back in the studio, and let's come to Mr. Mike Ejiofor at this point in time. Still trying to build confidences. We've identified what led to the situation, but somewhere there must be a way to begin to reverse the trend. Again, build confidence. And Professor Ikechukwu had said earlier on that it was not always like this. At the risk of sounding kind of romanticizing the past, how do we begin to get back when people were more aware of their environments, people were more conscious, people were able to share intelligence with security agencies, unlike the case now?
Yeah, we've all agreed that there's trust deficit.
Okay, I may have you to just, I have to ask you to hold on a while, since the calls are beginning to come in now. We have a Coyote who's calling in from Ondo. Coyote from Ondo, go ahead. Hello, Coyote from Ondo, are you there?
Okay. I want to quickly express my views for the program. First, I want to say this topic is very, very important and is very germane. And this time, given the fact that our country is going through, a lot. I think the basic problem or the challenge that we have is that our government has failed to recognize the role of the academia, especially education, the contribution to knowledge building, to nation building, society building. We have a lot of stockpile of intelligent individuals in the country, but government is not keen on that. But rather they are playing it's virtually with everything. Get it right, to ensure that there is security and proper security of life and property. Our government must ensure that every tower is respected, so that the generation coming can take a class from them. Take for example, our media seems to celebrate people who tend to expose themselves or indulge in several unethical practices compared to an individual who may first class or who has tried to get to the height in education. So not until narrative is changed, we cannot achieve success. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah, we're talking of trust deficit on part of the followers and leadership. Our leaders must lead by example. How patriotic are Nigerians? Nigerians are very good people. I remember, I think it was Akunyele, was Nigerian good people. They are very good followers. They need to be shown example. You can't tell me to be patriotic as a Nigerian when I'm hungry. And you can see our leaders living in affluence. It becomes a contradiction. Now you look at what they are preaching. What they are preaching is different from what they are doing. So we must do that we are preaching. You look at Nigerians. People are hungry. People are going to criminality. Not many Nigerians want to go into criminality. That's not justifying it. But a lot of people, out of frustration, go into criminality. Now we look at the issues of our leadership. Our leaders accountable to the people. It brings me to the issue of the electoral process. If we have good electoral process, that our leaders will emerge and they will be accountable to the people, then you know that after 4 years, you'll be voted, you will either be returned or you are voted out. But a situation where people come in and tell you, you can go to court without following them, you are not accountable to the people. It becomes a problem. But once you know that you are accountable to, so we need to sanitize, first of all, our electoral process. To make sure that good leaders emerge. Then following it up is another major issue of corruption. Corruption is the bane of this country. And if we don't, like people say, if we don't kill corruption, corruption will kill this country.
All right. We'll come to that as well, but there's another call from Abuja. Joseph, I believe. Joseph calling in from Abuja. Hello, Joseph.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah, I'm fine, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the major problems we are having with this insecurity in Nigeria today, to my best knowledge, as one of the speakers said there, is corruption. Because the corruption is the major source of this insecurity here in Nigeria. Because when the head is corrupt, the foundation will be bad. I mean, when the base of the foundation is bad, the house will collapse. Our leaders today, we don't have trust on them. We don't know who to trust in Nigeria because of insecurity, because of this, because of that. Most of the insecurity issues will still police because the police are not well paid.
True.
Today I read a paper where a policeman said a social man, artist serviceman said he's going back to the bush to fight Boko Haram because his salary is 50,000. It's not enough for him to take care of his family. Just imagine, see the risk we are putting ourselves. Today, nobody can hold 100,000 in my area, in Catapillar Party, precisely. You can't hold 100,000 in your house and sleep with 2 eyes closed. There are cuts everywhere, insecurity everywhere. We don't know where to go. Everybody today, the latest thing in Nigeria, I want to hear back. Those who can manage to build a house, they are leaving Nigeria to neighboring country.
All right.
So please, that is just my own contribution. I just thank you all to build this program, and this is the first time I'm listening to this program.
Okay.
God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Honorable Gaby, you, in your submissions, you also talked about allowing things to fester to a point where people have built up so much anger. And, here, I want to go to the role of sanctions. And people are not held accountable. Now, this time it's not just the leadership that's not accountable to the people, but those who have been found wanting, involved in many of these crimes. And one of the things people say is, if people are not held to account, they are not made to pay for what they've done, then it becomes, others will say, well, if they can get away with, some people can get away with it, so can I.
Well, you're right. Accountability is something that starts at the cradle of the society, which is the family. Fathers hold their sons accountable. Mothers hold their daughters accountable. Sons hold their fathers accountable. Daughters hold their mothers accountable. This is how we were brought up. You were a role model to my generation. We wanted to speak like you. We wanted to look like you. We aspired to be like you. This was how we were brought up. This is why, for me, this is a dream come true. Occupying this seat in front of you, speaking to you. And therein lies our problem. Accountability is not something that is only at the governmental level. Accountability starts from when we're an embryo inside the bellies of our mother. To expect accountability from someone who does not even understand what the concept of accountability is an exercise in foolhardy. If you come from a place where there is no accountability, what you see at home is what you replicate. Yes, there are errant variables. Experts here would argue to that fact. But what you see at home is what you replicate. This concept of accountability, again, is something that is bandied up and down without full understanding of what accountability means. I was a lawmaker. What was my role and function as a lawmaker? It was to make laws. It was to oversight other arms of government. It was not to go and build boreholes, culverts, buy school books, etc. But because of the absence or near absence of governance, I found myself having to do that, thereby having to find money in the budget, or to look for money, or to solicit for help, and by so doing, perhaps induce other government agents and agencies to become corrupt. Because ultimately they will come to me for appropriation. That's one. Number two, legislative rascality, where we make unimplementable laws. When you make unimplementable laws, they become unenforceable. Number three, we have antiquated laws. We have archaic laws. I keep saying this and we laugh through it. And this is why someone will steal 600 billion naira and will be sentenced to 2 years in prison or a fine of 300 naira. The laws have not evolved to catch up with this, our current reality. We have to accept this is our reality and live in this reality, accept this reality, and solve the problems of this reality. The previous speaker mentioned knowledge-driven societies. There is no society since the creation of man that is more knowledge-driven than this one. In your generation, respectfully, Professor, before you would become a billionaire, you would be in the twilight of your years. 3 scores plus 10, almost in the grave. Then you become a dollar billionaire. Now you have children becoming billionaires at 13. In the last 10 years, there have been 6 unicorns in the world, $1,000, $1 billion valuation and up. 4 of them came from Nigeria. From 2 states. Those 2 states in one part of the nation, Southwest. You have Wizkid and Co. These are billionaires. What more knowledge do you need? From your generation, we had Professor Atahiru Jeka. We had him at INEC. What we wanted to see him do to ensure that youth participation, to thin out this antiquated blood in our politics, was not done. And we keep talking. Constitutional amendment, this is where knowledge should come in.
Okay. Let's get back to the phones. We have a caller from Zaria, I think. Yes. Sani calling in from Zaria. Hello, Sani, if you're there.
Hello.
Yes, thank you very much for staying on the line. Go ahead. Thank you for staying on the line. Go ahead.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Christopher. I think, in my own view, our politicians does not have a country at heart. Because I think we need to reorganize and reorient our administrative institutions. There is total failure in our institutions, which has to be addressed. As the last speaker said, most of these legislators in our parliament are not realistic. Most of them, you find out that they are creating or they are sponsoring bills that will table their own political interests, not the interests of the masses. The issue of insecurity in Nigeria has become worse, and we can learn from other neighboring sister states where crises are looming. Nigeria is not exceptional, and corruption is one of the key factors that is biting hard our insecurity, which need to be addressed. You find out that a civil servant that is occupying his seat will lose a whopping amount of money and will be given a very meager amount, which is inconsequential. I think these are some of the issues that at least need to be addressed. When somebody is found guilty of an offense, it needs to be dealt with clearly so that other people will see that as a lesson. This insecurity is a drastic disease that needs to be addressed with a drastic surgery. So the government have to be up and doing in addressing issues of insecurity by dealing with the culprit that we are bringing to book. And my last submission is that the politicians are at the helm of affairs. So there is need for them to have the country at heart and to know that Nigeria is the only country we have, and we can't live like this while other neighboring sisters or other sisters of the nation are moving forward. While we are yearning that Nigeria is the giant of Africa, is the giant of Africa all the time. With what? With the failure of economy, failure of governmental institutions, and so many other things that can be seen vividly. That is my submission. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, we'll go back to the solutions and how we can make this work and turn things around.
Okay. Whole of society approach. there's nobody who should be exempt from trying to assist in national security, largely because all of us are victims, potential victims, all of us are vulnerable. Unfortunately for those who have created much of the problem, they are target number one. If you're a politician now, you really need a complete platoon to go home. And those of them from the north, most of them don't go home. They are our friends, and they tell you why. You know, it's so a whole of society approach, and I'm glad Gaby mentioned sanctions. When we speak of sanctions, we imagine that, oh, it's about, you know, get this fellow arrested, prosecuted, and jailed. No. Sanctions before contemporary times were normally what you might call part of public consciousness. There are people you don't greet because of who they are, as adults in a community. But let's look at it. We are aware of the head of a bandit group that was stubborn, I think in Taraba, is it Zamfara, I don't know which state. And we all know how people, once you're in politics and you made enough money, you're recognized in your religious assembly. You become a more prominent member of either your church or your mosque environment. Or you get a traditional title. When you don't give titles to the wrong type of people, which is what it used to be, that is sanction. So you see that the consciousness that, look, it comes from us, has been outsourced to inanimate institutions, the courts, the police, and the rest of it. But he comes out of the community, you welcome him. Those are the things that have to be reignited so that sanctions are real. The other point made about people in the universities, look, every environment needs to be knowledge-driven. Our traditional societies were knowledge-driven. If I was a palm wine tapper and my skills are very limited, nobody will recognize me to head a palm wine tapper's team, etc. But move it now. I'd like us to make a distinction so that we don't assume automatically that every scholar, every person from the university knows more than any other person who has gone to the university. No. From experience, well, from the university he must be aware of colleagues who, with all due respect to them, are barely literate, even in their own disciplines. And the scholarship is not just about reading, it's also about self-refinement. It's about a lot of other things that will make you a mentor, not just in the discipline, but in character to the students. So that being that the university system is also getting undermined by the wrong values, if we say it in that blanket form, that knowledge only comes from there, anybody with a degree, a professorship, will automatically assume he knows more than somebody who is better grounded than himself. I thought I should make that distinction so we don't take it as an automatic implication.
All right, let me quickly take this call. Wale from Abuja calling in. Hello, Wale, go ahead.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Cyril, sir.
Go ahead, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, I applaud your contribution towards enhancing the national security. But beyond that, we should look at it holistically. The military, after saying all the issue of kinetic and non-kinetic effort, it goes beyond just that, sir. So as it is now, the military, let the truth be told, we are overwhelmed security-wise. Whatever effort we are putting as the military, it goes beyond just the effort of the military. We have a problem with our judiciary and policing. We've seen situations where the police are quick to arraign suspects, which makes the other ones to go at large. There are no logical conclusions as to prosecution, name and shaming, and even liquidating both in liquid assets and physical assets. These bandits are not spirits. They operate within the realm right under our nose. Like I said, you arrest a bandit, and the next thing, police will be quick to grant them bail. lawyers will come on board and start defending them, whereas these people have owned up to their activities, or rather they were caught right in the act. What I'm saying is, if there are no serious or steep sanctions on these bandits or culprits, these things will continue. There should be death penalty, outright death penalty for bandits. There should be outright death penalty for sponsors, because so many people have lost their life. Of recent, there was a young lady that works with the correctional service. She was kidnapped for 70 days, and at the end of the day, we went into the bushes. We were able to rescue one of the victims, but at the end of the day, she was shot dead despite ransom being paid. Nothing was done from the Ministry of Interior. Nothing was done from her own AOR, which is the state FCT command, and she was buried. What justification are we going to give to this? Like my boss here have said, the second speaker, the member of the National Institute, has said well. The one to your immediate left also, the Sheikh, he has said well. It goes beyond just coming and just say our minds. Our views and opinions should have counted. All these things should have gone. The military is grossly underfunded, but then the synergy has been going on, but there is no continuity. And if we don't have a roadmap or a blueprint as to how things should be done, then every of our efforts is all in futility. My prayers now, let there be a concise and a holistic approach to this fighting of banditry. Bandits are not spirits. If they keep encouraging families not to pay ransom, families pay ransom because there is not much that is seen visibly. People don't talk except those at the corridors of powers are affected. That's when they come on air and say, okay, police are mandated to do this or do that. Sir, it goes beyond just when it happens. Let there be a sustained operation, let there be a continued chase, and let there be monitoring. The National Identity Management Commission, which came in the previous government, made us understand that wherever you are after your registration, you can be tracked. We keep talking to these bandits, negotiating with them, getting an actual location. All those coordinates, they are there. But at the end of the day, nothing is done. If you approach the police or you approach the military, they will tell you, this is not my AOR. But still yet, they come within your safe haven and break havoc, and they'll go back somewhere and sit there. So let there something needs to be done urgently. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
My sincere appreciation.
Thank you. Well, again, that's another angle to it all. Even for those who are apprehended, it's either they get off with a slap on the wrist, or they set free somehow under questionable circumstances to turn around and wreak more havoc. I think it was a top security chief at one point in time who said there was a serious problem and some of his operatives were worried that they would arrest criminals, and the next day those criminals are out on the streets again and they can identify those who arrested them, putting them and their families in jeopardy.
Thank you very much, sir. This brings us to the first issue I've highlighted. You know, this is a symptom that requires diagnosis because it's pointing to something. And the diagnosis now will now lead you to treatment. And this chain is what I mean by knowledge. It's not about certificates. Knowledge comes from education. Education comes from Greek. And what Greek means is to educe. And educe means to bring, to grow an insight from within. So we are not a society that look at trends and where is the trend leading us, and that is where we are failing. All these things you are saying are symptoms of larger diseases. Like this. This is a symptom of a society ridden by corruption. Whatever you see is a symptom. It is not left for you. You can look for a quick solution like Nigerians do. Take a paracetamol. You rest from the headache. Tomorrow you face another issue. Or you can be knowledge driving, go for a diagnosis of why am I having my headache. Then look for a fitting treatment for what you have diagnosed out of that experience. Nigerians, because of what I've said about not being knowledge driving, that is why most of our solutions are just shortcuts for a day or two. Why are we buying Tokumbo cars now? Somebody did not diagnose the problem. Why are we not having new cars? Why are we digging in what do you call it, in our homes now? We don't rely on water, normal water plants. Why are we buying generators now? We are not looking at what happened to NEPA. So most of us, we are always looking at scenery, selected events that happen on the surface. But he who needs pulse must dive deep beneath. Okay. And the difference is knowledge. Okay. And I'm telling you, why somebody, one of my students, a PhD student, and from the ministries, asked me that why he has been reading what I've written for about 20-something years, and he's seeing them clearly. Like now, I've cited Daily Trust of 1st June 2004. Go and read it, and you see what is happening now is what I predicted. I said the difference is knowledge-based. Knowledge is not about individual. It's not about claim. It's about developing an insight to look at where a trend is leading you. The knowledgeable look at those chains, connect the change, get the diagnosis, prepare a treatment, and deal with the symptom. But the non-knowledgeable will go and get paracetamol, like every laborer on the street. Get a paracetamol, rest from the headache today. Next week or tomorrow, you come to face the same issue.
Okay. Let's take this call from Niger State. Umaru. Hello. Umaru from Niger.
Hello.
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 Yes, go ahead, Umaru from Niger, if that's you.
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Isa Umar by name. I'm calling from Niger. Okay, sir. My contribution is regarding to the recruitment of security agencies, unlike militaries and paramilitaries. There is a time they had a recruitment on LND and military, which we later realized there was one of these NDLAs that was recruited, which some part of his family were drug dealers. And it happened that one out of the families were recruited. So it's better for Nigerians to make recruitment regardless to looking down to the families of whom they wanted to recruit onto militaries and paramilitaries. Thank you. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Jafar, that's the other angle there. Again, who conducts background checks on the people who recruit? What's the recruitment process? Some people get into certain positions for different reasons, not what we're thinking about.
You see,
how is it that it's those who cannot get a job somewhere who decide, okay, I'm going to go and enlist in the DSS today?
You know, the last speaker made a very vital point. recruitment process. And it doesn't stop at recruitment process. We are talking of corruption. You look at some members of the National Assembly. They have slots. Political thugs who work for them are recruited into the police. And they will come brazenly, taking pictures with them. These are the people are recruited into the police. And what next do they do? They are posted to them as details. So it becomes a problem. So if I think I was in Edo State when we went for a seminar. The recruitment process in their vigilante, they first of all go and get a note from the traditional ruler that this person is somebody known in this community. Then it goes to the DPO to see that it doesn't have a criminal record. Then it goes to the local government chairman who endorse before it comes to the state level. But do we do that now? No. And when President Buhari came in, he said they were going to recruit 10,000 policemen every year for 4 years, making it 40,000. Was that recruitment done? No. And we are calling the police. Police is incapable of handling this. The United Nations ratio is 1 policeman to 400. Now, we have less than 400,000 policemen to over 200 million people. And out of these less than 400,000, over 120,000 of them are posted to VIPs. And you expect the police to perform wonders. I mean, we should sympathize with our security agencies. We should, in fact, they are even doing more than we expect. But the problem people are facing is because security is paramount. The primary purpose of government is welfare and security of the people. Is our economy working? Do we have power? Is anything working? But people are worried because without security, there's nothing we can do. We need to create that environment to enable people to work. So we must support our security agencies. Let them volunteer information, let them come out, let Nigerians come out. We can't leave this into security agencies. If you don't have power in your place, you buy generator. If you don't have water, you put borehole in your house. So let us come together as group of people, community, and look at, we are talking of short term now, how do we do, what do we do to contain this? But in the long term, I've always advocated, we involve community policing, and the National Assembly should go ahead and see that we have made our constitution to accommodate state police. Although people will tell you it will be abused.
Doesn't this bring us back to the question of trust deficit? People should cooperate with the agencies of state and give useful information. As the age-long thing about you don't know by the time you reveal what reprisals will face from those who are who are hand in gloves with the people you're giving information to. Has that changed significantly?
No, significantly that has changed. Anybody hiding under that one is not, is that being mischievous or it's not serious? You have social media, you have dedicated lines. You don't need to go to the police or to the SSS to come and report issues. And if you fail to report, look at what happened in Ibadan, for instance. People were aware that explosives were being stored in that place. And they came out now to say, yes, we are aware that these people are doing this. Nobody who suffered it, the very people who refused to report. So we need to volunteer information to the security agencies.
As we begin to wind down, what are those points that we must happen and say, if we're looking at the short term, not just the short term, medium, and then long-term solutions to all of these. First steps we should begin to take. I know that all around, people always use the term rejig the security apparatus, and some of us have lost a sense of what that actually means.
You know, Nigerians thrive on buzzwords. You get 1 million Nigerians in one room, ask them what that means. Everyone will have a different meaning, just like restructuring. There is no substitute to good governance. And to begin to combat insecurity, local governance. The local governments must function. If the local governments function, the checks and balances in the society begins to function at that level. If we don't have local governments functioning, the state governors becoming emperors, and when they create problems, they run to the federal government to say we have problems and abdicate their own responsibilities, then we begin to continue this cyclical, repetitive cycle of problems and counter-problems. Cooperation, whole of government, all of society. There's nothing wrong with our security architecture as it is. In fact, it is barely functioning at optimum. So those who are saying reject the architecture, blah, 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 are looking for their own spaces for them to inject perhaps their own recruits into those spaces. Number 3, I like what the director, retired director, mentioned about slots. One service that politicians don't joke with is the DSS. When you say you must employ, you have a polite way of saying, distinguished honorable sir, you know, we will need you to sign here, your biometrics here, you are liable if this guy, distinguished senator will say, director, I don't really know this boy very well, perhaps we should take him to police or somewhere else. Right, so if other agencies of government will do the same, those checks and balances will begin to work. Then consequences. Abdication of responsibility in terms of consequences. Our courts fail because our courts are systems of laws. They are courts of laws, not courts of justice. Just because you go to the court does not mean you are guaranteed justice. People are looking for justice, and that is why people look more towards traditional and religious justice mechanisms, because they are justice delivering vehicles. Justice, which takes us back to, again, antiquated laws. That were bandit, allegedly, everyone is alleged until proven beyond, in a court of competent whatnot, beyond reasonable doubt, all appeals expended. During that process, one little I not dotted properly, somebody by constraints of law will jump on it, and that case is gone. It is the law. So perhaps we need to, instead of blaming the judges, to begin to look at the laws, which takes me back to my initial assertion. Antiquated laws. Archaic laws, unimplementable laws. If someone was talking about death to this, death to that, yes, amend the Constitution. Let it be done. Instead of every National Assembly coming into being, one of the first things they will do is Constitution amendment. The same things, indigent, citizen, indigent, resident, the same thing. Pass it at the center, take it to the state, because they need 25% concurrence. It is killed at the state. The next assembly will waste another 3, 4, 5, 6 billion to do the same thing. So if academics, professionals do not come and synthesize with the executive and say, we need only 4 things done in this constitution, if there's going to be an amendment, get the governors to agree, get the parliamentarians to agree, so that we know in 2 weeks, this is what we agree to, this is what is going to pass. Unless we do that, everyone, within the premise of the 1999 Constitution as amended, even if he's a criminal by your own definition, the Constitution gives him the right, as far as we're practicing representative democracy, to vie for position and get elected by his people. And if we want to make that to stop happening the way that we think it should, Mr. Stoba, INEC has the biggest role to play. If INEC disqualifies Mr. Gaby, because running for House of Representatives, what you're expected to spend is 10 million naira. Gaby spends 10.1 million naira. Gaby should stand disqualified. And we have the means to show that Gaby spent 100,000 above 10 million. Violence, you do violence, you are barred. I am even of the opinion, if you serve out a term of 2 years, two terms as a governor, there should be a moratorium period on you for 8 years, so that you don't retire from a governor that devastated havoc, a natural calamity on his people, then run to the Senate. You should stay at home for 8 years. If your people want you, when all the books, EFCC clear, ICPC clear, DSS clear, everybody clear, 8 years is a short time, you will rest, recuperate, then your people will bring you to the Senate. But to hop from House of Reps to governor to Senate, back to something else, it is unnatural. Power is circulating only amongst a small fraction of our population. Ergo, my conclusion, our democracy is a system of governance where a majority is expected to have their say and the minority will continue to have their way. How is that fair? Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, I already spoke of the whole of society approach. The thing to note is that many of these, if you look at the laws setting up the police, you look at NSDC as a civil defense and a lot of them, you find that in the statutes, a lot of them have practically the same powers to arrest, to detain, etc. And you ask yourself, since some of these organizations were in existence before the others, did they not read the statute before setting up the next one? We have NSAS, and the question is, what happened to the Nigerian Mobile Force? If it was functional, would you have had to set up NSAS, etc.? The police CID department is still there. Now, part of the problem is the multiplication of functions and limited coordination. And so it creates some sense of interagency rivalry, whereby we want to show we're the one who did this. And the good thing in the DSS has managed to maintain a certain kind of dignity. Because some of us are privy to a couple of things below the scene, where you have people running out to take credit, but we knew it was DSS that did it and conducted itself. Okay, if you want the credit, but we want the result. So, whole of society approach, de-incentivize misconduct. If all the agencies of government are working, like now the government is working on a national orientation project, reorientation, DSS, the military are struggling, then you come to your village. A known criminal who had taken people's lands, whom you know didn't win elections, who probably even snatched somebody's wife or had committed murder, he is given a chieftaincy title which declares him one of the most illustrious son of the community. And you know it's a lie. He gets the same recognition in church, or some other person gets it in church, another gets it. You find that you're subverting all the efforts of the few good people who are trying to give us a good society. So when we speak of whole of society approach and sanctions, it's not about the law courts alone, it's not about the police or DSS alone, it's about the sense of community. It is from that sense of community that you can then speak of real patriotism. Namely, myself, Gaby, Cyril, all of us here realize that if a criminal comes in and we say nothing, we could be casualties. But to think that you have communities where kidnappers have hideouts, going in and coming, the people know, until that hideout is then broken, then you hear them saying, yes, they were doing this and that. It tells you that the sense of community has evaporated. That the lecturer in the University of Maiduguri, if you remember 5 years ago or so, several of them were caught aiding, Boko Haram. And that some people are even adopting an ethnic and religious perspective on the matter without asking themselves, if you take an inventory of those who have died and are still dying in the hands of bandits and the rest of them, how many of them are non-Northerners? How many of them are non-Muslims? Only last week, a couple got married in Katsina. They were going home, I think. They were taken. 53 other people were taken. And Katsina has the worst case, one of the worst cases. And nobody is bothered. I think when the elders came out to speak 2 weeks ago, what was their concern? The relocation of CBN. I rest my case.
Well, we have a few more minutes to go, and in addition to your closing thoughts, I'd like you to also chip in the bit about parental upbringing, the home. That's the cradle. Yes, as Reverend Gaby had noted, there would always be the few exceptions, but generally, what's happening to the home that's almost broken down and no values anymore? People are raised and just grow, and it's what they see outside.
Thank you. We've started this. As far as I'm concerned, I've looked at it from perspective of two things within the society fighting against each other: opportunism and knowledge. When you go back to repeat what we've done now, all the problems we've been having are linked to opportunism. And I also like it that Honorable Gaby also concluded on the need to restructure, to look at our constitutions and system to see how we block means avenues that people take opportunity of. Now, proceeding from there, I want to also challenge us to look at what is happening to our primary education. what is happening to our secondary education, what is happening to our university education, this is where we're having the problem. As far as these things are not checked, these problems are going to continue. Let us go back to education. Why are we having it wrong? In those days, 20 or 30 years ago, from primary school, people will be educated with skills so that after primary school, some of them will just start technical things and contributing to society. At secondary school level, some people will be trained, given skills. Those who are better prepared, they will have opportunity to university. And therefore, whoever grows up have a pattern to take for his life. But you have millions of Nigerians, youths, who don't have a path of knowledge to pursue. And therefore, when the devil becomes their workshop, because they don't have knowledge. So let us go back there. And I want us to also look at all the societies we look up to, not the societies we look down at. All the societies we look up to are societies that are better in knowledge. Go to China. Children have better opportunity to be educated. Go to Japan. Go to US. Go to any other country you can find. And why are you going to find our mates? Countries that have crises. This is why you have people growing without education. The first thing our elites did to us was to destroy our educational system. And after destroying our educational system, we now have this crisis. They send their children abroad to go to better education. Now they know the value of education when it comes to their children. And they educate them, bring them here to take advantage over the non-educated. And therefore the non-educated have no other knowledge, have no other option apart from violence. And therefore we have to deal with knowledge. Now coming back to morality, society is kept stable either by morality or by the institution. Formally, we have cultural means of education. In those of us in the north who have Tasunia with our grandmothers and grandfathers at home, those things we learn a lot of morality from there. We have our teachers in Quranic and in churches. They teach us moral education, but those things have now broken. And that is why we are having this crisis. Because the morality that held you down, if you look at how you grew up to where you are here, you have a sense of there are some things I cannot do because of the informal upbringing. The informal upbringing is totally now collapsed. When I was young, in those days, if your neighbor or anybody beat you on the road, when you go home and report, they will beat you first. And then when they meet him, they thank him for teaching their child a lesson. But can that happen now? So all those informal avenues have failed. Government, our leaders, God is seeing what is happening. They know what to do. Come back to education. Restructure our curriculum so that the informal moral lessons that have now collapsed, we can now bring them back into the system from formal educational system. But we have a lot of problems in this country. And if we don't find that, look at what is happening with those people. What is there to stop Nigeria, the money they spend in N-Power? I have advised, I have given this. Use that money, bring those children, give them that money monthly, let them now support informal security sector. Are they doing that? Because they are not knowledge driven.
All right, just about 2 minutes. Yes, another major issue we have to look at is the issue of fifth columnists. You remember President Jonathan when he said that even in his government we have Boko Haram elements. Now, this present government, among the politicians, they are fifth columnists. There's something trending now, calling on the National Assembly, Senate President, to investigate allegation that there's a senator from a senator, let me just put it that way, who is involved in kidnapping and all that. These are very grievous allegations that must not be swept under the carpet. Right. Then the recruitment process. Let us do the right thing. Vet the people you are recruiting, and even after recruitment, you look at the issue of continuous vetting. Are the people living above their means? How are they going about it? And if you do, I can tell you that there are some of our, from on authority now, some of our security agents that are involved in this kidnapping, right, as it's become an industry now.
Right, so I always say that no one program can take care of all the issues at stake, and so we must leave this conversation at this point and maybe revisit it. time in the future. But for now, let's say a big thank you to all our guests. Honorable Aliu Gebi, thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Professor Ikechukwu, it's always a delight to hold these discussions with you. Thank you very much. And Dr. Ahmed Jibrin Suleiman, thank you so very much. And Mr. Mike Ejiofor, it's good to see you again after a long time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And thank you, too, for being part of it, all those who called in and for all those who stayed with us up to this time. We thank you for being with us. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.
You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
Female genital mutilation is any partial or total removal of the female genitalia for non-medical reason. FGM inflicts lifelong injuries on women and their female children. It constitutes a violation of women's fundamental human rights and threats to bodily integrity. Globally, more than 200 million girls and women alive today have undergone female genital mutilation. The practice of FGM is high in Nigeria, with 1/4 of the global estimate occurring in the country, and it cuts across all social, cultural, and geopolitical zones in the country. The physical and psychological damage is likely to continue throughout a survivor's life, limiting a capacity to participate fully in society. FGM is a criminal offense in Nigeria. Perpetrators can be jailed for 4 years or 200,000 naira fine.